All right, we are live.
Yeah.
So, we have before us, draft 3.2 of S60. And when I say before us, we're looking at it, on our committee webpage. Mike O'Grady made a couple of edits. And I'll point those out as you're going through. And then if the committee feels that it's prepared to, take a vote on the bill, we will do that. But starting on page 1, I should say, there aren't any highlights. Nothing's been highlighted here, so not going to be, stopping anything that is highlighted. But everything is the same on page 1. This is the findings.
What are we on, 3.2?
Version 3.2, yeah. Sorry, I'll wait and make sure everybody's got it.
It's been highlighted, so.
Yeah, fishing boat down
All right, so findings are the same, and then section 2, this is the definition section. We haven't made any changes here since we last looked at the bill. We've got, as we all remember now, farm and forestry operations in many areas where we just had farm before. Moving on to the bottom of page 3, this sets up the special fund. So it's going to be called the Farm and Forestry Operations Security Special Fund, administered by the agency. The fund consists of any funds that the General Assembly transfers, funds from public and private sources, the Secretary of Agriculture accepts, also funds from the federal government, aid for state support of farmers or forestry operations. So this is a change from the version we saw the other day, adding there on page 4, line 5, adding forestry operations. The Secretary should ensure language accessibility, and all balances should be carried forward and remain part of the fund. This next section, I think, is all the same: Farm and Forestry Operations Security Fund and payments. Well, this is what we looked at the other day. We've removed that one section about median net income that is out. The losses are now on page 5, section 3, the losses that are covered. We had added down in G, that logging roads, and then in H, inability to access harvard timber, so versus timber rather, so that's there still. Moving on to page 6. No changes here. On page 7, the board is created. Board is composed of secretary, the commissioner, chief recovery officer, representatives of 3 ag organizations, and then 2 farmers, and then 2 forestry operators. I'm now top of page 8, and this is a small change since the last version. These are now appointed by the Commissioner of Forest, Parks, and Recreation rather than the Secretary. So,
Makes sense.
yeah. Nothing else has changed on page 8 since we saw it earlier this week. Yes, John.
On page 6, when it says line 1, 2, and 3, there says a brief description of the damage that occurred. So on the forestry side of things, like it's not necessarily damage, right? It's like they couldn't get onto the land. So is that a problem, or is this just this is one of the sort of metrics?
Yeah, I think
talk about.
I think that if there is damage to roads, obviously that we have logging roads.
Sure, if there's a flood, but
Yeah.
I was thinking more that condition of not, say wet 200 days of the year kind of situation.
Yeah.
I don't think, Jed, help me with that. I don't think this is like written into cover them for
That sort of thing.
that sort of thing. It's more for extreme weather events.
Yeah,
I consider this for spring weather.
Yeah, if it's wet, really wet.
Warm winter or a wet summer, fall.
I think that if there's no damage, I mean, if you've cut timber and you've left it and I can't get at it because the roads are washed out or too wet, I think that the description of the roads would probably cover here. And there isn't any damage.
I agree.
Yeah, but and I suppose if the logs are no longer marketable because they've been affected, then that would also, you could cover that here.
Back to page.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that that basically covered the changes from the other day. So yeah, we were on page 8, that if there's a conflict of interest, then the secretary can appoint an alternate member.
Is the money out of this version? I mean, I didn't hear you say it. I know it was stripped out at one point. So basically, we're just asking for the fund and then
Yes.
we're waiting to see what appropriations might be able to give us.
Yes, yeah. So doesn't really gain us anything to put a dollar figure in because it would just be taken out anyway. And then the Senate version of the budget is, I think, done, and they're going to be we're going to be hearing about that shortly, I think, in the next couple of days. I hope.
Maybe even before.
Possibly, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I should walk that back because I'm not sure what the process is, where it is in the Senate floor. Yeah, so it may be more than a couple of days.
And then if in the future there was a dedicated funding source for this, that would just be added essentially to this statutory language.
Could be, yeah. Yeah,
It's not like we have
nothing-
to do it now sort of preemptively and say in the event in the future it has a.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to do that, and there's nothing that precludes, nothing in the language that
Right.
precludes that.
As long as it comes from the general fund.
Yep. So. Other questions?
What was I just missed it when I came in the other day, the percentage that the agency could use to administer.
It's
$67,000.
60.
It's a half FTE.
And it is,
So that got added in here?
Yeah.
it's in statute.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped over that.
yeah.
Thank you, John, for asking that. Maybe,
Does it say in here? Does it talk about,
page 7.
second? Application process, does it talk about? This becomes active once funded? Do we need to have a line in there saying that, unless. Or a line, the appropriations can that be added or the fill,
I think it's okay without that. But that's something the appropriations could, if there was a technical reason to
yeah,
do that, they could add that.
okay.
Yeah, so the top of page 7 is the language that.
Yeah, so why do they put in a dollar number rather than like 0.5 FTE? Because that would then could move forward, you know, in 10 years, 67,000 is not gonna be
May
happening.
use up to.
Right, but it's based, it's based on today's FTE, not as this goes forward. It just-
You're not wrong. But we,
Right either.
but we use the same language and everything else we've done.
Yeah, I think that,
That's the way they want it.
yeah, I think for, I don't know, maybe for budgeting purposes,
Oh, yeah.
this seems to be the standard approach.
And there's no minimum then, you know, what if 250,000 comes into this? How does that work? Like essentially such a de minimis amount that it would be better just to, you know, kick it to the next year.
Yeah, yeah. So are you asking in respect
I'm just
to
asking,
the agency's cut about it or?
no, not that so much. It's just, you know, we've talked about two farms, you know, are get 50% back and then the fund's done, you know, like, how does it work when?
Well, so we set it up so it's can only be up to 0.5, you know.
Right, but it would be such small amounts for all these. I just wondered if,
You know, if it's only 250,000, it's,
does the agency or does the board have the discretion just to say like, we're gonna award nobody this year and wait for the next fiscal year when there might be more?
Yeah, the way I read it is, yeah, the board has that discretion.
Okay,
but it is 5%. So, you know, it'd be $10,000-12,000. It's better than a shark stick in the
Happy to
eye.
have that.
right, yeah.
What did you say?
Better than a shark stick in the eye.
Yeah, I think that the Senate is talking about a larger figure than that anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that might have to do with, I mean, similar to if there was that much left, say, after a whole fiscal year, that rolls over too, right? They don't have to zero out. the
right.
toppers.
Yeah, but it's built, right, it's automatically gonna roll into the next year.
Until appropriations starts to claw back.
Right, yeah.
Is this only gonna be going forward, or can people make claims on things that already happened that are weather related? I mean, I just thought of that right now.
Going
What?
Like, so somebody that had flooding last year and never was repaid for the damages, can they apply for this? Or is it only from the July 1st, 2025 onward?
Assume this was not retroactive,
Yeah. I think as well.
but when you assume, you know what happens.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the language that would preclude that from happening.
Yeah.
From somebody saying, you know, I had a loss last summer or 10 years ago, but you know, from a practical standpoint, there's a lot, I guess, you know, there's a lot of discretion left here, as we've talked about, to the board. And yes, we could be more prescriptive and say, don't do that, but it seems like they probably wouldn't do that unless they had,
Lots of money.
well, yeah, and also, you know, a pretty compelling reason, given that, you know, then the next storm comes along and they don't have the money. But I think my reading of it is that actually, no, there's nothing that says they couldn't do that.
Mhm.
So that's a, you know, concern. I will say, we can certainly, we're not, you know, we still have the bill and we can still make changes. I'm reminded of the not making the perfect the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
You could also do a floor amendment too, if there was some reason to.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of another thing to keep in mind, that if it goes to appropriations, you know, then there's sort of an extra step there and possibilities.
Does it go to Ways and Means too?
No, since there's no revenue, there's no. Yeah, tax.
Learning?
All right, So how are people feeling? Good place?
Yep.
Then I would ask for a motion to recommend amending the bill as we have here in draft 3.2.
Is Frank asking a question?
Greg, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm guessing that there'd be a little bit of a retroactive component in the bill in terms of if you filed for a claim or a payment, whatever you want to call it, after July 1st. That would be for something that happened before July 1st, of course. So I'm not sure how the bill does address that right now, but there would be payments potentially being made for events that happen prior to July 1st annually. I think since the bill won't go into effect until July 1st of this year, then it wouldn't be retroactive, in being affected July 1st of this year. But in years going forward, I would assume it would have to have some sort of retroactive component to make payments for a disaster that happened, say, on June 15th, but the request wasn't put in until after July 1st. What are your thoughts on that?
That all sounds logical. I'm not sure that I can speak authoritatively on it. But I think maybe the more interesting piece is the storm that comes up this year, say at the end of June, that before the bill has kicked in, will somebody be eligible then on July 1st to file a claim? And again, I'm not sure that I can answer that question.
Yeah, I guess I feel comfortable voting either way. Maybe it'd be nice to have Michael kind of address that before we report the bill, probably, I would guess.
Sorry, can you say that again, Greg? You're a little garbled there.
Sorry, yeah, on the road right now. It'd be good to have, I guess, Michael maybe clarify that to us before we report, I would assume.
Yeah, and Michelle's going to report on it, so she can. I think that's good question.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I would argue that you could. There's nothing in here that states that you can't, so you should clarify it in some manner.
Yeah, I think it gives discretion to the board.
Yeah.
Right.
The agency too probably has had similar situations where, the fiscal year is in a different year than when awards are granted to somebody.
Yeah.
They might have a suggestion.
All right. So would anybody like to move the motion?
Make a motion that we vote on S60 3.2.
Okay. Is there a second?
Awesome.
Right. Any further discussion? All right. The clerk may call the roll.
Favorable vote. Opposed to which amendment?
It's favorable with amendment, actually. Yeah. So this is strike all amendments.
From the Senate or from as introduced?
If you're ready, I'll
From the Senate.
call the record. Rep Bosland,
Yes.
Rep Burt,
Yes.
Rep Lipsky, yes. Rep Morgan,
Yes.
Rep Nelson. Rep O'Brien,
Yes.
Rep Supernaut,
Yes.
Rep Durfee.
Yes.
Are we under the same rules of you get 3 remote votes a year or something?
You get 3 days of remote committee voting, yeah, in the calendar year, I think. So if we cross over into July and we're still here.
Three more?
Before I announce the results of the vote, who shall I put down as reporter?
Representative Bosland will be the reporter.
Or the vote tally is 8 yes, 0 no, and 0 absent.
And the clerk, I think, is asked to somehow indicate on the form that Representative Burt's vote was a remote vote. We need to, we need to track that so that
Yeah.
we don't accidentally have 4 days. Seems that probably won't happen this year. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for all of the attention and thought that went into what seemed like a fairly straightforward bill when we got it, and still relatively straightforward, but
If it weren't for that forestry part, it would have been easy.
The draft number is 3.2,
yeah,
and that was dated today,
423, right?
That's yesterday.
4/24.
Sorry, it's dated, no, it is dated 423.
But it still is draft 3.2.
Yes, yeah.
We give this to Donnie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What becomes of that piece of paper? Does someone else get to see it outside of
So
here?
actually, what I've noticed, and I think this is optional, is it sometimes gets uploaded onto the committee page.
Oh,
Yeah. It doesn't get turned in anywhere.
right. So people can see how we voted.
Yes, that would be. the
And
intent
of course, when she reports, it's going to be.
Yeah. I don't think have any other witnesses or business this afternoon, unless, Sidonia, unless you have gotten an email from anybody. Okay, so the 2 witnesses who had been scheduled to speak this morning at S45 were not able to make it, as it turned out. So I mean, didn't have had time to fit them in anyway, so we will reach out to invite them in. Either later this week, I guess probably not, since it's Thursday.
Can I ask who they were gonna be? I mean, what was?
Yeah, they are listed on the agenda today.
Norman and Alex, the ball. What's their perspective? Like, are they gonna be at S45 also?
They asked to testify in S45. Yeah, I don't know what their perspective was.
They're farmers or?
They're farmers, yeah.
They never reached out. It was, yeah,
Oh,
or Amber Perry reached out.
So the Farm Bureau had lined them up to
Yeah,
speak. Yeah.
and sort of just said, send them Zoom links, they'll be there. And so I sent everyone Zoom links.
And I think their perspective was probably in favor of the bill, but I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken to